recording, and yeah, the tiniest of intros is I came across Deepol's work literally in the hallways of Virginia Commonwealth University where I was working. I don't think I've ever had a chance to like work with you specifically, like directly, but I loved the work that I saw on the hallways. And my boss at a different school was like, I don't know what's going on with photo these days. I don't know where photo's at. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's this person at VCU. And so I took a picture of your work and I showed it to my boss at what the fuck is that school called? Um, the one
Is that
in
unit?
Charlottesville.
Okay.
Anyways, why am I blanking on the name of that school? Whatever. I showed it to my boss there, and I'm like, "This is the future of photo." And my boss is like, I guess I just don't understand photo anymore." Anyways, so I love that story that I showed your work to someone, and they're like, "I don't get it." um,
That's what I'm here for.
so I'm just gonna turn it over to you.
Cool. So, yeah, my name is Deeppool. Um, Obviously, Dana and I met at VCU when I was an undergraduate. I graduated in 2019, so it's been about almost 3 years. I guess 3 years by now, which is kind of crazy. Um, I guess a little bit about me. I grew up in New York City, and then I obviously went out of state to Virginia, which was actually a really awesome experience. I was definitely nervous to go to Richmond, but I'm glad I did. I have no regrets. But I relocated back home, so I'm living in Queens now, where I make art or try to be a working artist as best I can. Um, but yeah, uh, right now, I don't know. I don't really know what to say. I guess for the last 2 years, it's been kind of like pandemic life. So I don't think I need to explain myself with that. I think we've all experienced kind of a lag in school and career and whatever. But this year I'm having two solo shows, which is really both are really amazing opportunities. One of them is in Connecticut, which is where I am located right now in Hartford, which is kind of close to University of Hartford, which has a pretty stellar art school. Um, and then the second one will be later this year in the Bronx. So it'll be my first solo show in New York, which is both exciting because that's a cool place to show, but it's also where I'm from. So I'm very excited. But
Congrats, that's so awesome.
thank you. Um, yeah. So I've been in Connecticut for I guess 2.5 days, and I'm here tomorrow. But we're just installing the show, which opens next week. Um, and I had a small conversation with Dana about how it's very cool that we are doing like a 4 day install period. Um, a lot of the work is already finished, so it's been pretty relaxing, which is I'm usually used to installing in like I don't know, like a day, a night. I mean, it's still a little crazy because we've been having to repaint and make some more work that I didn't get to finish, but overall, it's pretty fun. Yeah, uh, I guess I don't know what else to say. I can respond to questions maybe.
Do you do you want to show us around like the space a little bit more thoroughly, like specifically talk about how install is going, like depending, I don't know how comfortable you are showing like stuff that isn't completely installed, and then maybe you could even show us some work that way. Give us a little tour of the
Cool.
space.
Yeah, so right now it doesn't look let's see, how do I
Yeah, can you flip the camera? Is that
flip
possible?
this?
Oh,
Cool.
sick. Yep, yep.
It's not the sexiest yet, but
No way. This is awesome. Thank you. This is so cool.
we have some work that is being planned out right now. We're currently building some pedestals for the work, but here's some of the stuff. the work is relatively small this time around, but let's see. Yeah, this is kind of what I would say the days leading up to the show look like. And we have some C stands, which will be part of an installation. And then this is where we do everything. um, Painting and stuff. I can show you. I requested black walls, which was partly vetoed. So we negotiated half and half. But yeah, the space is pretty cool. There's like we have another show over here by Elizabeth Flood, which is really amazing. So the gallery has kind of different little spaces that offer solo shows or group shows for artists in the area or who apply to be part of the grant process, which is something else I could talk about in terms of making work as a young person. Yeah, this is kind of the space. They have a cool little movie theater over there. I think right now they're setting up for an event, like a movie screening tonight, but this is where I am continuing to work tonight. Yeah.
The space is amazing.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. It's a here. Let me. It's a really cool space. The galleries are really big for showing art, which I'm a little nervous about because my pieces are very tiny this time. But I think it'll be kind of sweet. It'll be a little like precious to have small work in the space. Yeah, I hope that was satisfying.
Yeah, totally. Do you have the ability to share any work? I notice you have your laptop there. Or is it going to be difficult to jump in like some images of your work into this like Zoom
Um,
session?
yeah, unfortunately, my computer, this Wi-Fi is like blocking my website,
No
which
worries.
has, but is it possible screen share on the phone?
Yes, I think it is. But if it's too much of a hassle, don't worry. If you can't figure it out quickly.
Let's see. Let me just try to see.
Yeah.
Um, oh, share content. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can. We can totally
Okay.
see your screen. Yeah, it's just like your phone desktop. So be careful. We see it all. Oh yeah, this is working great.
Cool. So this is my website. This is some of my work. So I guess I didn't really explain what my practice is, but I have a background in photography from VCU. And while I was there, I kind of started experimenting with like installation and object and just like execution methods, which I felt like I wanted to add more to my images, I guess, like as simple to put it. But this is mostly work that I've made post graduation. This is the last show I had um, post or pre COVID. And yeah, so I'll do kind of like installations where I'll like, let's see, I can't close up on the phone. Where I will like try to hang stuff with keys are just kind of like things that don't make sense. Like this wouldn't, it defies gravity a little. So some of it is kind of nonsensical, and a lot of the work is still just framed work. Um, this is from my thesis show actually out in Richmond, and I also work a lot in light boxes, which are usually presented on the ground, so viewers going to look down at it. And this is kind of working with like turning work into a mirror, by using kind of like DIY methods. I dip into text a little bit, but I'm still a little weary. I don't know if I'm the best writer, but um, yeah, some of this work is going to be present in this current show, which I'm really excited about because I either haven't shown it since I was in school, or I just haven't had the opportunity to kind of show. I mean, yeah, I haven't really had an opportunity to show in general for the past few years. So that's really something I'm looking forward to, because I think showing work in real life is a totally different experience than on the internet. And of course, I think the internet, has this level of accessibility that's really amazing. Um, just for anybody that has access to the internet, there's a lot more you can view and experience. But yeah, it'll be both are exciting.
Are you, as you come into like your first in-person show since COVID, are you kind of having to refamiliarize yourself with like the physical, or like has it not been that distant? Like, I guess I'm saying, like, are you now suddenly like, oh shit, I got to take care of like how stuff actually looks like up close, or like how things are joined, or whatever? Is there any like specific concerns you're having during this install that you're like, oh right, I forgot about this?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's also a mixture of not being on a college campus or like the city of Richmond. So moving back home was kind of like, once I was offered both of the shows, I realized like just getting the work together was a lot different than being in an institution where you have everything, you have the privilege of having everything right there for you. Um, and so that was a really, really big transition to kind of just be in like a much larger city and have to acquire resources, from like all over the place. Um, and of course, you're also not working directly with professors or with other students that you can kind of share a skill set with, or become influenced by. So I found there was a lot more like research and communication, um, like to get prints made or to get prints mounted, and a lot of the stuff too it was interesting because a lot of the stuff I did on my own, and I think a lot of students do when they're in school. But I didn't have a studio, or I don't have a studio, and so there's this kind of like this shift in like, oh, I need to outsource stuff, or if I'm not in a place where I can print my own work, so I'm going to have to work with somebody else and print with them, which is a really it's an interesting process. I mean, I think that it can be kind of stressful because you're not always handling your own work, but it also can be kind of uh, I don't know. It's a mixture of like, yeah, you're not being able to always have control, but also it's easier on your time management. Or I guess a big benefit to it is working with other people and kind of um, seeing how other people work and gaining skills from them, and um, yeah, kind of letting go a little bit of the fact that as a working artist you can't always have control over all of your resources necessarily, if that makes sense. I don't know, maybe that's just me right now, um But yeah, and travel too. I totally forgot about the fact that people travel to bringing the art to other places, shipping, all that stuff it is very new to me, post graduation, and also yeah, just being super used to sitting on a computer and emailing all day.
You mentioned text. Well, actually, you said you dabbled in text, but you're not so sure about it. And I've always loved the text in your work and the incorporation of the text. Uh, could you explain why you're not so sure about it? Because I always thought it was like such a huge integral part of it. And then maybe just explain like your general use of text. I know it's like more of a piece by piece basis, but
Yeah, I started using text around like 2019, and I think that along with image making, text is kind of a similar way of working. Um, so I kind of wanted to like for me, I don't know if I really would consider myself writing poetry. And I only say that because I think that people who do write poetry really go through an intense process, and I don't think I could necessarily compare myself to some really amazing poets that I know or that I read. Like, no way. But I think there's a with poetry and prose and lyrics. I think I see the the text in my work a bit more lyrical, and when you're taking images, there's a level of it being kind of metaphor or speaking in visual, um creating an atmosphere, creating something that comes from your head or comes from real life, like whatever. It's there are a lot of similarities and parallels, I think, with writing and image making, um specifically kind of like poetry lyrics where words are reduced, and they're at least in the way I use it, it's a little metaphorical. um but yeah, I'm kind of creating an image out of the text as well, so that it translates the same way that a photograph might or an image might. um yeah, I mean, I started off kind of writing writing stuff to accompany how I was feeling about my own work, and a lot of what it started off with was kind of like these diary entries, which felt very vulnerable, but I started adding them into my work, and um, that was it. Definitely, it changed the trajectory of the work, and it kind of, I think it made meaning with a lot of the images that I made that maybe uh, didn't resonate with other people the same way that I wanted it to. And it can become kind of a key to understanding the work a little bit more, kind of the way I think the titles act, for work to kind of, you know, propose another access point into understanding the work, especially if you're kind of working conceptually or working metaphorically. Um, yeah.
the having the stuff on the floor, one, I freaking love that about the work. But especially that one that you just scrolled by. Yeah, that one there with the orange extension cord. It suddenly hit me how like grave like it is. I mean, also like the use of the marble texture. Am I reading that totally wrong?
It is a grave.
Oh, okay.
That's what
You
I thought.
actually, I that was my intent, and I actually, I mean, I don't know what's in people's heads when they look at it, but I think that you are definitely the first person to be like, "Is that a grave?" I don't know if people are like, I don't want to be morbid, but yeah, that piece is called "Too Good to Be Forgotten," which is kind of, I don't know if you guys have seen that, like kind of like yearbook pun thing. Well, somebody wrote it in my yearbook in fourth grade, and it's obviously stayed with me since then. But yeah, that's a piece that I made pretty recently, and it's like a this is kind of grainy, but it is like my senior portrait from high school. And so I guess I don't know. I didn't really go into like my artist statement or kind of who I am, but I basically I'm like a transcontinental adoptee, and I also am a transgender person. So I'm going through a current gender transition right now. And this piece, I keep working with this image of myself. And I think that it kind of speaks for itself, you know, about femininity, institution, holding this rose, you know, there's this kind of gender role that I think, uh, you know, we're all kind of expected to participate in. Um, and I think the same thing about, uh, you know, all aspects of identity. We kind of have these numbers to us, like quite literally, but also identities that are very fixed, and somebody who kind of shifts between um I don't know if I want to say shifts because I feel like I don't know, I don't like that word anymore, but like as somebody who is kind of displaced from my ethnicity and my culture, that's been an experience of like, how do I deal with that part of my identity? And then now transitioning, you know, you're kind of inherently in this middle space. Um, I mean, I don't want to speak for everybody, but that's for me, that's kind of how it feels to kind of go through the transition and kind of live in two different worlds. Yeah. So that's that piece. I'm kind of putting my past self to rest. I am working with this image again in this show on a really large scale, which I'm really excited about. It's a very like it's a bit of a vulnerable image, and again with kind of the diary entries, it's like before I put the stuff out, I'm like, this shit is like really personal. Do I want other people seeing it? But then there's kind of this aspect of self-sacrifice there where I think that uh, those pieces, those works have always resonated the most with other people. And so, you know, that's kind of what I feel like as an artist, that's like part of my job is to kind of be honest, like crazy honest. And I guess just part of that is, yeah, kind of reflecting on yourself and being super, super fragile, super vulnerable.
Yeah, I was gonna ask like if you saw not like a direct linear correlation, but I think what you said about like people responding really well to like very vulnerable work. Um, do you think like that openness in you invites openness in the viewer slash reader?
That's a really good question. And I definitely have been thinking a lot of like connecting that to what you said about showing in person again, um, in terms of creating kind of an ambiance for the show for viewer to connect with. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a really good question. It's also kind of tough to answer because I could definitely go off on a lot of tangents, but um, I'm gonna try to answer this briefly. Wait, can you repeat the question again?
I guess yeah, you sort of answered it earlier, but I was just curious like if you felt the pieces that you personally felt were like the most vulnerable, like if you saw those as the pieces that get like the best received or the best reception with viewers. Um, and I know maybe that's like impossible to answer because you're not inside other people's heads.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that there's like it's just kind of this inherent um it's gonna sound so cheesy, but this inherent like feeling. I don't know how else to like fucking put it, but like, you know, it's true. There's a kind of ritual in making art that I think when you're creating an experience, I think of it kind of like gift giving. Like I've been there's somebody told me once, and this has stayed with me forever. It's like the best gifts given are the ones that you'd want for yourself. And I think, like, does that make sense? I don't know. Like, so in that kind of, in that regard, it's like, yeah, usually the work that I make is most vulnerable actually is also like the work that I like the most, because I make a lot of work that I show and that it's like I think it's fucking crappy, but sometimes it's like you have to, like, you're on a deadline, you have to put some shit out, or like it's just part of the process. But definitely, uh I wind up, what I'm saying is I wind up liking kind of the most personal work and the most kind of scary work to put out of there, that's like comes like directly from my brain and like from my private life. And I think that people can sense that. I think that's like the kind of uh the superpower of art in
That's
a
awesome.
way.
That yeah, that's really cool. Like the idea of art as gift giving. Um, yeah, that's awesome. I have like a kind of a boring, kind of technical question about your process. Like the image that's directly below the one in the center of the screen, the one of the flower sort of dipping into the water. And in general, so not specifically this piece, but like this piece is a great like I don't know indicator of my question. For the images that you generate, are these found images? Did you set that flower up and like dip it just enough into the water? How do you usually work? Like you have a lot of sunsets. Are those yours? Did you grab them from the internet? Like where do the images come from? Do you walk around with the camera all day?
Yeah, that's actually that's a fun question to answer. So I guess to start off, um, clearly a lot of my work is very like botanical or natural. I think this is like one of the only humans I've ever published in any of my work. But yeah, it's very the work is part of the natural world. And a little bit going back to how to communicate with other people, I've always found that the fun thing about art, at least for me, like my work is so fucking personal to me that in a way it's like I actually can't expect other people to understand it. And I think that for me to ask that of somebody would be really vain. Um, so I kind of work in cliches and these kind of metaphors that I think, we've all seen a sunset. Um, we've all seen a flower, a rose. And so I work mainly in this stereotype of beauty. And then I think there are kind of these twist offs, like this block, which is also pretty stereotypical and stuff that definitely, I think, invite a little bit more investigation. And that's up to the viewer. I don't care. You can look at the work and be like, sick, or you can look at it and be like, I kind of want to know more. And that's, I think that's the power to working really vaguely. um is that, yeah, there's multiple levels of accessibility that go on. But yeah, I shoot with anything that I can get my hands on. And for the most part, everything is made in camera, um, except for the text. And let's see. Yeah, like I have like one piece that I'm making that is rendered through Photoshop right now, but that's pretty much it. Um, I work in digital mainly. Some of the more like, let's see, I just went away from it. This piece is digital, and so when I'm kind of trying to make this like bigger scene, I'll use like a fancy digital camera. But this is made in camera. Like none of this is photoshopped except for the color correction, and even that I don't really love doing. But I actually mostly work in iPhone. So a lot of my work, this is iPhone. Um, this is digital camera. Uh, I used to spray paint some stuff, but yeah, I work a lot in iPhone and a little bit in analog. This is 35. I think that this is like 4x5 digital. I think this is 35. But anyway, yeah, it's pretty much whatever I get my hands on. And yeah, I do stage or find most of the like find in person. Um, Most of the images I make. Um, I I have been asked before if I use stock imagery, and I don't, but I like that that is a question that is asked because that's kind of like going back to what I was saying. That's kind of the point of like it's almost so it's so cliche that it's almost like cheesy, um, where it's kitschy or it's like yeah whatever. But yeah, like I was just taking a walk in the park and I saw this butterfly and I thought it was pretty. So a lot of that work is just it's really not that deep. Like a lot of this shit, yeah, is just like I think this looks really pretty. I think I'm gonna take a photo of my iPhone. But like if you really think about it, that's what everybody does. That has access to a cell phone. Um, and I guess yeah, I don't know what else to say. That's pretty much the technical stuff. I pull it into Photoshop and I add a little bit of color correction and that's really it. This one I shot in fuck I was in Virginia like a year ago and I shot this in the ocean and it's just a flower that I found laying around.
Yeah, that's perfect. I like what you said about liking the question that people ask, is this stock photo?
Yeah, I mean, I love playing around with everything that you're kind of not supposed to do in photography. Uh, because why, why not? Like like have a little fun. I remember going into the photo major and it's like, don't take photos of flowers. Don't take photos of, these like tropes. It's like black and white tropes and, you know, don't do the sunset. Uh, don't shoot with an iPhone. That was a big thing. And I don't know. I just was like, that's cool, but I'm gonna do what I want to do.
Oh, that's so amazing. You're like, I'm still gonna do what I want to do. We're actually like getting a little tight on time. Can you talk about the clothing runs? Because that's also like I've been meaning to order one, and I was gonna ask you if you can ship to Japan.
I can ship to Japan. Yeah. So I like kind of a year ago, I guess. I started making clothes during the pandemic. I was on unemployment and I was like super bored. And the story behind the clothing is that I have this. So my I go by Deep Pool, which is kind of like a self-given moniker, which has bled into my real life, and now people call me that. But I wonder if it'll let me. Yeah, cool. I also work with this kind of rabbit lexicon, which is complementary to Deep Pool. And it was a way for me to kind of add a visual to the text. Again, like kind of merging these two practices, or I don't know about practices, merging these two forms of making and communicating. Um, but the rabbit was kind of present in a lot of my work around like 2018 and then 2019 I started working primarily in images and then like text but mostly image and I was kind of trying to find a way to keep the rabbit alive um, and it's kind of just like this important spirit animal to me. It's the kind of the phrase is like follow the white rabbit, which I think is very popular in pop culture and media. And if you've ever seen The Matrix, which is like pretty pretty big right now too with its comeback. So uh yeah, it's another cliche of like, you know, whatever, following something, following some kind of, whatever. If you've seen The Matrix, that's a good reference point. But yeah, I started making these t-shirts to keep the rabbit alive, which I think just the standard black and white ones. This one's sand. I like the kind of off-white color. But yeah, I just kind of continued doing it. I started sewing and kind of trying to play around with stuff. It's somebody recently asked me, they're like, do you want the clothing and your fine art to kind of merge? And I was like, that's a really interesting question. Like he was like, is it separate or is it the same? And I was like, I don't really know. Like at first I was like, just, like how everybody now is making a t-shirt, just the way everybody now is like making tattoos and like all that stuff. I was like, I was just like, I don't know, I'll just print these t-shirts I do kind of like silk screening in my bedroom. But it did kind of evolve into something that it became a little bit reflective of my work. And I guess, yeah, I think I don't know. I felt like, I feel like fine art can be kind of inaccessible and a little like elite sometimes. And I don't expect my best friends to, drop $3,000, because I know they can't, so it's like the clothing is a good, I think, I guess, a good way to kind of keep making work on the side. Um, it's very just like, yeah, last thing, it's very liberating. I mean, my work, as you can see, is kind of anal. It's like really like tight. And with the clothing and the kind of printing and the sewing, it's been really awesome to kind of let go of that and do something that's a little less deep. And like, if I sew something on the wrong way, I can't take it off, and that kind of, uh, letting go and just kind of making in a really different way. But yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that exact thing. Like, is it like like stretching different muscles kind of thing?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I do it kind of like when I'm in my free time, or like when I'm, because I have to do a lot of writing for these kinds of shows. Just kind of based on the world that, I'm in right now, which is the nonprofit world. And I didn't really go into that, but yeah, I'm in the nonprofit world, which is mainly, so the shows I'm having, they give me grants to make them. And one of the bigger ones I'm doing right now is a fellowship. So I'm there for a year and they give me a very big amount of money, which is really, really awesome. Like I'm super grateful. But yeah, I mean, if one is thinking about going into the arts, especially as an emerging artist, it's definitely a really great, um, world to go into, because it's hard to make art as a young person because you have to work, and supplies are expensive and whatever. I don't need to explain that stuff. We all know it. But uh, yeah, I think that I had to do a lot of writing for this stuff, and so it's a good, like, making the clothing. Like, I just kind of think during it. It's very mindless, but it's also really, really awesome to know that I'm still making something, and it feels a little bit more like making work for the people versus making work for, I don't know, the rich donors.
Oh no, the class divide.
Yeah.
I don't want to take too much of your time. We're kind of rounding, the end of this, but uh, Natasha, did you? I always throw it to you. Do you have any questions? Just because I want to make sure we got time for that.
I had kind of a specific one. So the pieces where you hung them up with the like locks and keys, how did you keep the key in the lock, or did they just stay?
I guess I'll tell you my secrets. Yeah, it's just glued in with like silicone.
Okay, that's kind of what
Um,
I figured would be the
yeah.
easiest, but I wasn't sure if it was just like magic and they just
Uh,
suspend themselves.
it's whatever you subject yourself to. But yeah, a lot of the stuff is just kind of glued together.
Thank you.
Yeah.
When you adopt these more kind of like, I don't even know the proper term for it, but like construction aesthetic, there's probably a better term for it. But do you get nervous because I guess you like talked a little bit about sculpture earlier on, but do you get nervous because you're dipping into like such a uh thoroughly like skill refined world, like someone's going to come in and be like, oh, that strap's not right, like someone from like, you know, the construction sector or sculpture, like, yeah, I don't know, like how does it feel when you dive into those, even just I'm like looking at like your like wood joinery practice, does that make you nervous, like,
Uh,
oh, don't look too close or whatever?
yeah, all the time. It's like this, yeah, yeah, all the time. I mean, like, I'm pretty, yeah, I mean, when I was an undergrad, I was super resourceful and I was kind of like making stuff out of like paper and foam, but now I'm working in wood a lot more. And like a lot of it is very DIY and kind of like me praying that this will work. Like me just being like, I really hope that this frame that I'm building is like not gonna fall off the wall in 2 days. And it's like same with the lock and key thing. I actually just refabricated that for a group show in Pennsylvania, and I needed to remake the lock and key thing, and like it didn't dry in time, and I had to like ship it out, and I already missed the opening, and like I was like so nervous that it was just they were gonna hang it up and it would just like fall and like shatter. So yeah, I definitely don't, because I wasn't trained in craft or sculpture or anything. I definitely it's nerve wracking. I mean, I will say that I do get help from some friends that like build and stuff, which I'm really thankful for. And like it's also kind of fun to dip into these other uh ways of working because it's like it's just fun. Like I can work with my friends that did study crafts or you know have access to woodshop, and it's kind of a fun like way to collaborate and support each other. It's like uh so stuff like that. But yeah, all the time I definitely, and like it's like I also know I'm like using some of this stuff incorrectly, like not for its purpose, and so it's kind of a fun game to play too. uh but yeah, a lot of trial and error and do it yourself with the sculpture install.
Yeah, I like that about the work a lot because I think because of your use of like more like iconography or stereotypical work, there's a lot of stability in the vehicle of the image, and so then like the instability in like the install is like super interesting, like with the tension that makes.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm thinking about it too as I kind of grow as an artist, and like I feel like the shows I'm having now are like I need them to be good, quote unquote, because of its exposure and stuff. But there's also a big like I've also been grieving a little bit of like yeah, I had my friend we were building like boxes, like light boxes and pedestals, and it's done professionally, it's fabricated correctly, and there's definitely a grief of kind of leaving behind more DIY process that I would have done when I had like either less resources or less financial dependency on the work, and just you know also just going it's kind of a little like selling out in a way, you know. um Me being concerned with like, oh, this the longevity of this work has to stay, like what if somebody buys it and it has to be, it can't fall apart, you know. The work becomes a little less ephemeral, and there's totally I've totally been thinking about that and totally been slightly grieving that. And that's a decision for me and other artists to make. It's like what do you sacrifice uh as you grow?
Yeah, for sure. That's yep. That totally makes sense. Yeah. That is such a weird spot to be in, and like how do you even like how do you even like engage with that? Like, do you go back? Do you hold like garage shows or something just to get away from that, or do you start like an alter ego that like is a new emerging artist that doesn't have that? Yeah, that's awesome, man. Thank you. Natasha, anything else? Like,
No, no. Thank you for sharing everything though. Thank you.
Yeah, totally. I hope that was like everything made somewhat sense or like whatever.
Yeah,
it,
that's good.
it was so cool to see the install in progress. Like, I feel like such an amazing treat to see, like, even that's like that ratty table in the middle, like with paper towels and drinks on it. That's like, ah, that's so cool.
Yeah,
Yes.
this is where we've been sitting for the last 3 days.
Wait, hang on. Is it okay if I take a shot of that?
Yeah, definitely.
The crafts table. How do you, just before I let you go, how do you feel about install? You feel comfortable? It's going to work out okay?
Yeah, I'm pretty happy. I have a lot of like the cool thing about that I also haven't experienced like in the real world is like I have so much help here, which I'm so like grateful for. Um, and so that definitely really helps. And it also just helps to have like extra hands and stuff. But it's going good. I think that we'll be finished by tomorrow, and then we open next Thursday.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Okay. So a more like sane and healthy schedule.
Yeah, yeah. There'll be time in between to like rest.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, yeah, dang. Thank you so, so, so much. Once I throw this video up for class, I'll send you a link to, just so you have it.
Cool.
Yeah, and thank you for your time today. It's so awesome. Good luck on the rest of the install. I'll be looking at your Instagram. Are you going to post like shots from the show probably on Instagram or?
Yeah, definitely. I will. I will
Cool.
be updating the social medias and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Nice. Cool. Thank you so much.
yeah,
It's so good to see you. And yeah, like I'll be chasing you down always.
definitely. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. Thanks, Natasha, for joining us
Yeah,
live. So
thanks.
cool.
Thank you.
Yeah,
All
thank
right.
you. And good luck with your
Yeah,
show, Deepo.
yeah, thank you so much.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye.